Hey everyone, I'm Mono Scaling here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, get comfortable and relax. Story 2. My name is Jacob Turner, and I need to write this down while I can still remember what happened. While I still know what's real. We arrived at Fremont River Campground in southern Utah on a Thursday afternoon in late September. The place was mostly empty, just a handful of RVs scattered across the valley floor, dwarfed by the red canyon walls that rose up on all sides. Sarah had found it online, some obscure site that wasn't part of the national park system. Private land, minimal amenities, $40 a night. Perfect for what we needed. It's so quiet, she said as I backed our 28-foot Winnebago into spot 17. I can't hear anything. She was right. No highway noise, no generators running, nothing. Just wind moving through the cottonwoods along the riverbank. After 3 months of her mother dying slowly in a hospice bed, after the funeral and the relatives and all the sympathetic faces, quiet was exactly what we needed. I leveled the RV while Sarah walked down to the river. When I finished, I joined her. The water was low, barely a stream really, moving slow over rust-colored rocks. The whole valley had this dried-out quality, like something that used to be lush, but had given up. "How long are we staying?" she asked. "As long as you want." She nodded, but didn't say anything else. That was fine. We'd been married 9 years, and I'd learned when to talk and when to just be there. That first night, we cooked dinner on the propane stove inside the RV. Neither of us felt like building a fire. Sarah went to bed around 9, and I stayed up reading by the LED lamp, listening to her breathe in the back bedroom. Around midnight, I finally turned in. I woke up sometime later. My phone said 3:47 a.m., to the smell of smoke. My first thought was electrical fire, something in the RV wiring. I was out of bed before I was fully awake, checking the outlets, the breaker panel, the stove. Nothing. But the smoke smell was stronger now, coming through the windows we'd left cracked for airflow. I looked outside. There was a fire in our fire ring, flames dancing maybe 2 feet high. "Sarah?" I called back toward the bedroom. No answer. I checked. She was still asleep. I pulled on my jeans and shoes and went outside. The fire was definitely in our ring, burning actual wood. 4 or 5 decent-sized logs, fully involved. I stood there for a minute, trying to make sense of it. We hadn't built a fire. I was absolutely certain of that. I looked around the campground. The nearest RV was maybe 200 yards away. No lights on anywhere. No sounds except the fire crackling and the wind in the trees. Maybe I'd been mistaken. Maybe Sarah had built it earlier and I'd forgotten. That didn't make sense, I would have noticed. But nothing else made sense either. I got the water jug and doused it. The wood hissed and steamed but went out. I stirred the ashes with a stick to make sure, then went back inside. In the morning, I checked the fire ring before Sarah woke up. Just wet ash and charred wood. I didn't mention it to her. She was having her coffee by the river, and she looked more relaxed than she had in months. I wasn't going to ruin that with some weird thing I probably imagined or misremembered. We spent Friday hiking. There was a trail that followed the river upstream for about 5 miles, ending at a narrow slot canyon. Sarah took pictures on her phone. We saw a few other people on the trail, a family with 2 kids, an older couple with expensive backpacks and matching windbreakers. Normal people having a normal time. That night, Sarah wanted to cook outside, so I finally built a proper fire. We roasted hot dogs and made s'mores sitting in our camp chairs as the sun went down behind the canyon rim. The temperature dropped fast once the sun was gone. By 9:30, we were back in the RV. "I'm glad we came here," Sarah said as she got ready for bed. "I needed this." Me too. I stayed up later than her again, but this time I made sure to check the fire before I came in. I doused it thoroughly, stirred the ashes until they were cold, then covered the whole thing with the metal lid from the fire ring. When I went to bed around midnight, that fire was definitely, completely out. I woke to smoke smell at 4:12 a.m. This time I didn't waste time checking the RV. I went straight to the door and looked out. The fire was burning again. Same size as before, maybe a little bigger. The metal lid I'd put over the ring was sitting on the ground beside it. I stood in the doorway in my underwear, watching it burn. The logical part of my brain was trying to find explanations. Wind could have blown the lid off, maybe. But wind couldn't reignite cold ashes. Wind couldn't make burned logs whole again and set them on fire. I looked around the campground again. Still no lights, no movement. The sky was clear, stars everywhere, no moon. The fire cast jumping shadows across our campsite. I got dressed and went out there. Up close, it looked like any fire I'd ever built. The wood was fresh, not the burned logs from earlier. Someone had to have brought new wood and lit it while we were sleeping. "Hello," I called out. "Anyone there?" Nothing. Not even an echo. The canyon walls were too far away. I put the fire out again, more thoroughly this time. I separated all the logs and scattered them away from the ring. I dumped 3 full water jugs over everything. I turned over every piece of ash until it was all cold mud. Then I sat in my camp chair and waited for sunrise. Nothing happened. Birds started making noise around 5:30. The sky got lighter. By 6, I could see the whole campground. Just RVs and trucks and SUVs, everything quiet. Our fire ring held nothing but wet black sludge. Sarah came out around 7, wrapped in her fleece robe. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She looked at the destroyed fire ring. "What happened there?" I wanted to make sure it was really out." She gave me a look but didn't push it. "You want coffee?" "Yeah." We spent Saturday in town, about 40 minutes down the valley. Got groceries, walked around, ate lunch at a diner where everything on the menu was some variation of beef and potatoes. Sarah bought a book at a thrift store. I asked the woman behind the counter about the campground. "Fremont River?" She had to think about it. "That's the BLM land, right? Past the wash?" "I guess. It's not a national park." Right. Yeah, I think I know it. Don't get many folks out that way. Most people stick to Capitol Reef." Has anything weird happened out there that you've heard about?" She looked at me like I'd asked if aliens were real. "Weird how?" "Never mind. Just curious." On the drive back, Sarah said, "What was that about?" "What?" "In the store. Asking about weird things." I kept my eyes on the road. "Someone's been messing with our campsite, building fires while we're asleep." "What are you talking about?" So I told her. Both nights, the fires that appeared, how thoroughly I'd put them out. As I spoke, I could hear how it sounded, paranoid, stressed, like someone who hadn't processed his wife's grief properly and was looking for external things to worry about instead. "Jake," she said when I finished, "maybe you just forgot, or maybe I didn't forget. Or maybe some teenagers are screwing around. It's not that strange. At 4 in the morning? Teenagers do weird things." She was probably right. That was the most logical explanation. Some local kids knew the campground, knew which sites were occupied, and thought it would be funny to sneak in and start fires. Harmless pranks. Except it didn't feel harmless. That night, I didn't build a fire at all. We ate sandwiches inside the RV, played cards, and were in bed by 10. Before we went to sleep, I told Sarah I was going to stay up and keep watch. "Jake, you need to sleep." "I will. I just want to see if anyone shows up. This is getting obsessive. One more night. If nothing happens, I'll drop it." She didn't look happy, but she didn't argue either. She turned over and was asleep within minutes. I envied that about her. Always could fall asleep anywhere, anytime. I sat in the dinette with the lights off, looking out the window at our campsite. The fire ring was still full of muddy ash. I had my phone for light if I needed it, and I'd set 2 alarms, one for 3:30 a.m., one for 4 a.m., in case I dozed off. I didn't doze off. I sat there for hours watching through the window. Around midnight, I saw a shooting star. Around 1, I heard coyotes yipping somewhere up the canyon. Around 2, my back started hurting from the dinette seat. Around 3, I really had to piss but didn't want to make noise that might wake Sarah. At 3:47 a.m., the fire started. I didn't see anyone approach. I didn't see anyone light it. I was looking right at the fire ring. I'd been looking at it for 5.5 hours, and suddenly there were flames. Not sparks, not smoke first, just flames. Like someone had flipped a switch. I sat frozen, watching it burn. The flames grew steadily, reaching up into the darkness. The wood, and there was definitely wood, I could see the logs, burned clean and bright. After maybe 2 minutes, I got up and went outside. The fire was real. I could feel the heat from 10 feet away. The wood was real, juniper from the smell. The flames cast light across the dirt and sagebrush. Everything normal except for the fact that I'd been watching that exact spot for hours, and nobody had built this fire. I walked around the perimeter of our campsite looking for footprints for anything. The dirt was mostly hard-packed, but there were softer patches. I found our footprints from earlier in the day. I found what might have been a raven's tracks. I didn't find any human prints except ours. I went back to the fire and stood over it looking down into the flames. "What do you want?" I said. The fire kept burning. I didn't put it out. I went back inside the RV, locked the door, and sat in the dinette until sunrise. When Sarah got up around 7, the fire was still going. "Jake?" Her voice had a note I didn't like. "Did you build that?" "No." "Then who?" "I don't know." She came over to the window and looked out at it. The fire was smaller now, but still burning steady. "This is really freaking me out." "Yeah. We should leave." "Where are we going to go?" She didn't have an answer for that. Her mother's house was sold. Our apartment back in Denver was sublet for another month. We'd planned on traveling for a while, figuring things out. This campground was supposed to be the first stop, not the last. "At least to a different campground," she said. "What if it follows us?" She stared at me. "What?" I didn't know why I said that, it just came out. But once it was out there, I realized I believed it. Whatever was happening wasn't about the campground, it was about us. Or about me. The fire was meant for us specifically. "Never mind," I said. Let's get through today. If it happens again tonight, we'll leave tomorrow, I promise." She wasn't happy, but she agreed. We spent Sunday trying to act normal. We went for a short hike, ate lunch by the river, read our books in camp chairs. The fire from the morning had finally burned out around noon. I didn't touch the ashes. Around dinner time, an older guy from one of the other RVs walked over. First person to approach us since we'd arrived. "Evening," he said. He had a white beard and a Patagonia vest. "You folks doing okay?" "Fine," I said. "Why?" "Saw you had a fire going this morning. Pretty early for that." "Yeah, well," I didn't know what to say. "Only asking because this area is under fire restrictions through October. No open flames before 6 a.m. or after 10 p.m. BLM rules." "We didn't know that," Sarah said. "No worries. Just letting you know. Rangers come through sometimes and they'll fine you." He looked at me. "You put it out properly, right? These canyons, fire can get away from you fast." "It's out." He nodded and walked back to his site. Sarah waited until he was out of earshot. "So now we're breaking rules too?" "I didn't build it." "I know you believe that." "You don't?" She looked at me for a long moment. "I believe something is happening. I don't know what." That night, I built a small fire before 10 p.m., like I was allowed to. We sat out until exactly 10, then I put it out. Thoroughly. I drowned it, stirred it, buried it under dirt. When I was done, there wasn't a single ember visible. "Satisfied?" I asked Sarah. "Are you going to stay up again?" "No, I'm coming to bed." But I didn't sleep. I lay there next to her listening to the RV's small noises, the wind outside, the river in the distance. My phone was on the nightstand. At 3:30, I picked it up and pulled up the camera. Then I got up very quietly and went to the window. The fire ring was dark. I stood there, phone camera pointed at it, recording. Sarah stirred behind me, but didn't wake up. I kept the camera running. At 3:47, the fire started. I have the video. I've watched it maybe 100 times. The timestamp is visible in the corner. At 3:47:04, there's no fire. At 3:47:05, there are flames. Not a gradual start, not sparks catching. Just flames, fully formed, like something had been burning for 20 minutes already. I watched through the window as it grew. Then I woke Sarah up. "You need to see this." She was groggy and confused, but when she saw the fire, she became very awake very quickly. "How?" "I have it on video. Watch." I showed her the phone. We watched together as the timestamp clicked from 04 to 05 and the flames appeared. Sarah watched it 3 times without saying anything. "That's not possible," she finally said. "I know. It has to be edited, or the camera is glitching." I was watching. I saw it happen exactly like the video shows. She sat down on the bed. In the window behind her, the fire burned cheerfully. "What's happening to us?" she asked. "I don't know." We sat there as the sky started getting lighter. The fire kept burning. Around 5:30, Sarah said, "I want to try something." "What?" "I want to put it out." "I've put it out, every time." "I know, but I haven't." I didn't see how that would make a difference, but I didn't argue. We got dressed and went outside together. The fire had burned down some, but was still going strong. Sarah picked up the water jug. "Wait," I said. I had my phone out, recording again. "Okay." She poured the whole jug over the fire. It went out like any fire would, hissing, steaming, dying. She stirred the ashes with a stick until there was nothing but wet gray sludge. "There," she said. We went back inside. I kept the phone camera pointed at the fire ring through the window. We sat at the dinette, both of us watching the screen. Nothing happened. 6 a.m. came and went. 7. The sun rose, turning the canyon walls orange, then yellow, then white. The fire ring stayed cold. "Maybe it worked," Sarah said. She sounded hopeful. Maybe. But I didn't believe it. I could feel it now, whatever it was. A presence, an attention. Something was watching us, waiting. The fire was just how it manifested. Taking it away wouldn't solve anything. We made breakfast. Sarah seemed more relaxed than she had in days, like solving the fire problem had lifted something from her shoulders. I didn't have the heart to tell her I thought we were just in the eye of the storm. Around 9, she said she was going to walk to the camp host's RV and ask about extending our stay. We'd paid through Tuesday, and it was Monday morning. "I thought you wanted to leave," I said. "I did, but if we figured out the fire thing, maybe we can stay a few more days. I'm not ready to move on yet." I watched her walk across the campground. The host's RV was on the far side near the entrance. It took her about 5 minutes to get there, and I could see her talking to whoever answered the door. Then she started walking back. She was halfway across the campground when I noticed something behind her. Smoke, coming from our campsite. I ran outside. The fire ring was burning again. Not a big fire, but definitely burning. I looked back at Sarah. She'd seen me run and was jogging toward me now. "Stay there!" I yelled. I grabbed the water jug and dumped it over the flames. They went out. I stirred the ashes, then looked up at Sarah, who'd stopped about 50 feet away. "It's out," I called. "Jake, what's happening?" "I don't know." She came the rest of the way, looking at the fire ring like it might bite her. "It started again?" "Yeah. But I put it out. We both watched." "I know. So what does it want?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did it want? I'd been assuming it was random, some weird phenomenon we'd stumbled into. But Sarah was right, there was an intelligence behind this, a purpose. "Let's go inside," I said. We spent the rest of the day in the RV. Neither of us suggested leaving. I'm not sure why. Maybe because we both knew it wouldn't help. This thing, whatever it was, had chosen us. Geography wouldn't matter. Around noon, I decided to test something. I went outside and built a fire in the ring. A normal daytime fire. It burned fine. I let it go for an hour, then put it out properly. We waited. Nothing happened. The fire stayed out. So the rules were consistent. Fires we built stayed out when we put them out. Fires that appeared on their own kept coming back. Maybe it's trying to tell us something, Sarah said. Like, maybe there's something in the fire? A message? Like what? I don't know. Faces. Patterns. That night, when the fire appeared at 3:47, we both went outside and stared into it. We looked for shapes, symbols, anything. It just looked like fire. Nothing, Sarah said after 10 minutes. Yeah. We went back inside. The fire burned for about 3 hours, then went out on its own around 7 a.m. This pattern continued for 3 more days. Fire appearing at 3:47 a.m. Nothing we did made it stop. We tried different ways of extinguishing it. Water, dirt, smothering it with the metal lid. We tried ignoring it. We tried building our own fires at different times. None of it mattered. Every morning at 3:47, flames. The weird thing was, we started getting used to it. By the 5th day, we were sleeping through it. We'd wake up around sunrise, see the fire burning itself out, and just go about our day. It became routine, like living next to train tracks and learning to tune out the noise. Other people in the campground started noticing, though. The guy with the white beard came over again. "You folks sure like your early morning fires," he said. Not accusing, just commenting. "It's a spiritual thing," Sarah told him. I have no idea where she came up with that. Morning meditation. Huh. Well, to each their own. Just remember those fire restriction hours. We will. After he left, Sarah started laughing. Morning meditation? He bought it. Did he? Or does he think we're crazy? Does it matter? She thought about that. No, I guess not. On day 8, the fire didn't go out on its own. We'd gotten used to it extinguishing around 7 a.m., give or take. But this time 9 o'clock came and it was still burning. 10 o'clock. 11. The wood seemed to be lasting forever, never quite burning through. "This is different," Sarah said. "Yeah." "What do we do?" "I don't know." We couldn't just leave it burning. It was nearly noon, and even in September the desert got hot. A fire going all day would draw attention. I went out and put it out. It resisted somehow. I had to use 3 full water jugs, and even then I could swear I saw embers glowing under the ash. That night I stayed up with a notebook. When the fire appeared at 3:47, I started documenting everything. Temperature, cool, maybe 50 degrees. Wind, light from the west. Moon, waning crescent. Flame height, 2 to 3 feet. Flame color, orange, normal. Wood type, juniper, same as always. Duration, unknown, still burning at 7:30 when I gave up and went inside. Sarah found me at the table, surrounded by notes. "What is all this? If we can't stop it, maybe we can understand it." "Jake." She sat across from me. "We need to talk about something." I knew that tone. "Okay. I think this is about Mom." I put down my pen. "What?" "Not literally, but the timing. We came out here right after she died. We're both processing that. And maybe our brains are doing something weird. Creating this shared experience because we need something external to focus on instead of our grief. You think we're imagining this? No. I mean, yes, I don't know. But Jake, listen, fires don't appear out of nothing. They can't. So either there's a rational explanation we're missing, or we're both experiencing some kind of psychological break. I have it on video. Videos can glitch. Cameras can malfunction. We can't both be hallucinating the same thing at the same time. There's documented cases of shared delusions, folie à deux. I wanted to argue, but part of me wondered if she was right. Grief did strange things to people. We'd both been under tremendous stress. Maybe our minds had found a way to create a problem we could tackle together, something concrete instead of the abstract pain of loss. "So what do you suggest?" I asked. "We leave. We go somewhere else, see other people, get back to normal life. If the fires stop, we'll know it was psychological. If they don't, then we'll know it's real." She nodded. We packed up the RV that afternoon. It took a few hours to disconnect everything, stow the gear, make everything road ready. By the time we finished, it was after dark. We decided to leave first thing in the morning. That night, neither of us slept. We lay in bed waiting. At 3:47, we heard the familiar crackle of flames starting outside. "It's not real," Sarah whispered. "We're imagining it." "Okay. We're not going to look. We're just going to stay in bed." "Okay." We stayed in bed. The sounds continued, fire popping, wood shifting, and something else now. A low sound, like wind, but rhythmic, almost like breathing. "Do you hear that?" I asked. "No." "Sarah, I don't hear anything. It's not real." But I could see her face in the dim light from the clock. She heard it too. The breathing got louder, closer. It sounded like it was right outside our window now. "We should go," Sarah said. "It's dark. We'll leave in the morning." "Now. We should go now." She was right. I got up, got dressed. Sarah did the same. We were both trying to be quiet, like the thing outside might not know we were in here if we didn't make noise. I went to the front of the RV to prep for driving. The keys were on the dash where I'd left them. I picked them up and looked out the windshield. The fire was huge, not just in our ring anymore. It had spread somehow, flames everywhere, surrounding the RV in a complete circle. The breathing sound was louder now, coming from all directions. "Sarah," I said. "Sarah, we have a problem." She came up front and saw it. "Oh, God. That's not possible. Fire doesn't spread like that, not without fuel." But there it was. A perfect ring of flames around us, maybe 10 feet from the RV on all sides. Not touching anything, not spreading, just burning. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Start the engine, just drive through it." "If it's real, it's not real, you said so drive." I got in the driver's seat, put the key in the ignition. My hand was shaking. "Jake, come on." I turned the key. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. The RV was completely dead. No, Sarah was saying. I tried the lights, the radio, everything. Nothing worked. It was like all the power had been drained from the RV. "We're trapped," I said. The breathing was inside now. I could hear it coming from the bedroom, from the bathroom, from the storage compartments. Everywhere at once. Sarah grabbed her phone. "I'm calling 911. There's no signal out here." She tried anyway. Then she started crying. "Hey," I said. "Hey, it's okay." "It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay." She was right, but I didn't know what else to do. We were inside a dead RV, surrounded by impossible fire, with something breathing all around us. All my notes, all my attempts to understand, none of it mattered. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "For bringing you here. For not leaving when you wanted to." She shook her head. "I wanted to stay too. I thought..." She trailed off. We sat in the dead RV as the sun came up. The breathing continued. The fire continued. And slowly, I started to understand. It wasn't about understanding. It wasn't about stopping it or fighting it. The fire just was. It would keep appearing, keep burning, because that's what it did. We could pour water on it, we could bury it, we could run. None of it would matter. "I think we have to accept it," I said. "Accept what?" "That this is just how things are now. The fire burns. We can't stop it." Sarah looked at me. "That's insane." "Maybe. But what else can we do?" She didn't answer. The sun got higher. The ring of fire started to die down, gradually shrinking back toward our fire ring. The breathing faded. By 9 a.m., it was just a normal fire again, burning in our ring like it had for the past week. The RV's power came back on. Lights, fridge, everything. I tried the ignition. The engine started. "We can go now," Sarah said. "Yeah." But neither of us moved, because we both knew the truth now. We could drive to California, to Maine, to Alaska. It wouldn't matter. The fire would find us. It had chosen us, and we'd chosen to witness it, and now we were bound to it somehow. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Sarah was quiet for a long time, then she said, "I guess we stay. We've been here for 6 weeks now. Every morning at 3:47 the fire starts. Some days we watch it, some days we sleep through it. Some days it burns all day. Some days it goes out at dawn. We've stopped trying to explain it, stopped trying to make it stop. It's just part of our routine now, like doing dishes or taking out the trash. Other campers come and go. The guy with the white beard left after 2 weeks. A family took his spot for a few days, then moved on. New people arrive, set up, leave. They all see our early morning fires. Some comment, some don't. Nobody stays long enough to see the pattern. Sarah and I don't talk about it much anymore. What's there to say? We wake up, the fire's burning. We go about our day. Some mornings I put it out just to do something. It always comes back. I think about leaving sometimes, about just driving away and seeing what happens. But I'm afraid of what might follow us. Not just the fire, something worse. Some escalation we can't imagine yet. So we stay. The campground host asked if we wanted to pay by the month. "Better rate," he said. We took it. Sarah's started writing again, something she hasn't done since college. She sits by the river in the mornings and fills notebooks. She won't tell me what she's writing. I don't ask. I take pictures of the fire now. Different times of day, different angles. I have hundreds of them on my phone. They all look the same, but I keep taking more. Yesterday I found ashes in the bathroom sink. Neither of us had been in there with anything burning. Sarah said maybe it was dirt. I said maybe. We both knew it wasn't. This morning the fire started at 3:47 like always, but when I looked out the window, there were 2 fires. One in our ring, one about 10 feet away in the dirt. I didn't tell Sarah. I'll wait and see if she notices. The thing is, I've started to wonder if we died. If maybe we died that first night and just didn't realize it, and this is some kind of purgatory. The same campsite, the same routines, the same impossible fire. Forever. But I can't make myself believe that. Death should feel different, shouldn't it? More final, less like waiting. Sarah's calling me. Breakfast is ready. I should go. The fire's still burning. 3. My name is Natalie Clark, and I need to write this down while I still remember it clearly, while I can still tell the difference between what happened and what I think happened. We found the RV site in Fish Lake National Forest, Utah, 3 days before everything went wrong. My husband Derek and I had been planning this trip for months. His idea mostly. He'd bought a used Winnebago from some guy in Provo, convinced that we needed to reconnect with nature and step away from screens. I'd rolled my eyes but agreed. Our marriage had been rocky since his mother passed, and I figured 2 weeks in the mountains might help. The campground was called Pando Vista, named after the famous aspen grove nearby. The ranger who checked us in was a woman in her 50s with sun-damaged skin and eyes that didn't quite meet ours. She handed Derek a map with our site circled in red pen. "You're in E7, she said. "End of the loop, quiet spot." "Perfect," Derek said. She looked at me then, just for a second. "You folks planning to stay the full 2 weeks?" "That's the plan," I said. She nodded slowly. "Well, you need anything? Ranger Station is a mile back the way you came. We close at 6. The drive to E7 took longer than expected. The road curved through dense stands of aspen and pine, and twice Derek had to stop to let deer cross. By the time we pulled into our site, it was nearly 4 in the afternoon, and the shadows were already long. The spot was isolated exactly as promised. The nearest occupied site was maybe a quarter mile back. Our space was a cleared rectangle with a fire pit, a picnic table, and hookups for water and electricity. Behind it, the forest pressed close. That endless white bark repetition of aspen trees that made it hard to judge distance. "This is great," Derek said, already climbing out. "Look at this. Total privacy." I got out too, stretching my back. The air was thin and cool, carrying the smell of pine sap and something else I couldn't identify. Something organic and damp. We spent the next hour setting up. Derek connected the hookups while I arranged our supplies inside the RV. We'd brought way too much food, typical of my planning, but better too much than too little. The fridge hummed as it came to life. I stacked cans in the narrow cabinets. Beans, soup, tuna, corn. Comfort foods. Things my mother used to make. By the time everything was settled, the sun was setting. Derek built a fire in the pit, and we sat in our folding chairs, drinking beer and watching the flames. He seemed more relaxed than he'd been in months. His shoulders had lost that permanent hunch he'd developed at work. "This was a good idea," I admitted. He smiled at me, reached over and squeezed my hand. "Told you." We stayed out until the fire died down to coals. The night was remarkably quiet. No traffic sounds, no voices from other campers. Just the occasional crack of a branch settling and the soft whisper of wind through the aspens. When we finally went inside, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Derek wanted to hike. I'm not much of a hiker. My knees have never forgiven me for the half marathon I ran in my 20s, but I went along. We followed one of the trails marked on the ranger's map, a loop that supposedly wound through the aspen grove and back to the campground. The forest was beautiful in daylight, the white bark almost glowing against the darker pines. Derek kept stopping to take pictures with his phone, though he'd insisted we were here to get away from technology. I didn't mention the contradiction. We'd been walking maybe 40 minutes when Derek stopped abruptly. "Do you hear that?" I listened. Nothing but wind and the occasional bird call. "What?" I thought I heard. Never mind. Probably just an animal. We kept going, but something had shifted. I found myself watching the trees more carefully, as if expecting to see something move between them. The trail markers were inconsistent. Sometimes a clear wooden post, sometimes just a faded blaze of paint on a tree trunk. Once, I was certain we'd passed the same distinctive boulder twice, but Derek insisted I was mistaken. By the time we made it back to the RV, it was past noon. I was exhausted and irritable, my knees throbbing. Derek made sandwiches while I lay on the bed in the back, pressing a cold beer can against my forehead. "You okay?" he called. "Fine. Just tired." That afternoon, I noticed the fence for the first time. I'd gone outside to dump our gray water, one of the less glamorous aspects of RV life, and was walking back when I saw it through the trees. A chain-link fence, maybe 8 feet tall, running perpendicular to our site about 50 yards into the forest. I stood there for a moment, confused. The fence seemed out of place, too industrial for a national forest. I walked closer, pushing through the undergrowth until I was standing right in front of it. The fence was old, the metal showing rust in places, but it was intact. No holes, no gaps. It stretched in both directions as far as I could see, disappearing into the trees. On the other side, the forest looked identical. Same aspens, same undergrowth, same dappled sunlight. There was no gate, no sign explaining what it was for or who had built it. Just fence. I followed it to the left for maybe 100 feet, then turned back and followed it to the right. No change, no opening, just fence, endlessly continuing. When I got back to the RV, Derek was reading a paperback thriller on the couch. "There's a fence back there," I said. He looked up. "In the trees, behind our site. Big chain-link fence." He blinked at me. "So? So it's weird. Why would there be a fence in the middle of the forest?" He shrugged and returned to his book. "Maybe it's marking Forest Service property, or keeping people away from something dangerous. But there's no sign, no explanation. Nat, you're overthinking it. It's just a fence." I wanted to argue, but I could hear the edge in my voice and knew I was being ridiculous. He was right. It was just a fence, probably left over from some old logging operation or something. I dropped it and went inside to start dinner. That night, though, I couldn't stop thinking about it. After Derek fell asleep, I lay in the dark, listening to him breathe. The RV's walls are thin, and every sound from outside seemed amplified. Wind in the trees, the distant call of an owl, and once, very faintly, what might have been footsteps crunching on gravel. I got up and peered through the small window above the bed. Nothing but darkness and the vague shapes of trees. I told myself I was being paranoid and went back to sleep. The next morning, the fence was closer. I know that sounds insane. Fences don't move. But when I went out to empty the gray water again, I could see it from our site. Right there, maybe 30 yards away instead of 50. Same chain link, same rust, same lack of explanation. I stood at the edge of our clearing, staring at it, trying to convince myself I'd misjudged the distance yesterday, that I'd been distracted or confused about where I'd been standing. "Derek?" I called. He came out, coffee mug in hand. "What's up?" "The fence. It's closer." He squinted toward the trees. "I don't see a fence." "What?" "It's right there." I pointed. He walked over to stand beside me, following my finger. Then he looked at me with that expression I'd come to dread, the one that said he thought I was being irrational. "Nat, there's nothing there." "You're looking in the wrong spot. Follow the line of that dead tree, then about 20 feet to the right." "Babe, I'm telling you, there's no fence." I walked toward it, and he followed, both of us pushing through the brush. When we got to where I'd been pointing, there was nothing, just trees and undergrowth and dirt. I turned in a circle, disoriented. It was right here. I saw it. Maybe you saw it yesterday somewhere else and you're getting confused about where. "I'm not confused, Derek. There was a fence." He held up his hands in a placating gesture that made me want to scream. Okay. Let's go get breakfast. You're probably just tired." We went back to the RV, but I barely tasted the eggs he scrambled. I kept glancing out the window, looking for the fence. It wasn't there. By midday, I'd almost convinced myself Derek was right. I'd gotten confused about the location, misremembered. Almost. That afternoon, we drove to the ranger station. Derek wanted to pick up some firewood, and I was hoping to find a trail map with more detail than the one we had. The same woman from check-in was there, sitting behind a desk covered in paperwork. "How's your stay going?" she asked without looking up. "Good," Derek said. "We need some firewood." She gestured to a pile of bundles near the door. $5 a bundle, honesty box. While Derek paid, I approached the desk. "Can I ask you something?" She finally looked at me directly. Up close, her eyes were a very pale blue, almost colorless. "Sure. Is there any fenced-off area near Site E7, like in the forest behind it?" Something changed in her expression. Not much, just a slight tightening around her mouth. "No." "You're sure?" "Because I saw no fences in that area, nothing to fence off." Derek came up behind me with 2 bundles of wood. "Ready?" I wanted to press the issue, but the ranger had already returned her attention to her paperwork, clearly done with the conversation. We left, and Derek loaded the wood into the back of the truck we'd been towing. On the drive back to camp, he said, "You've been off since we got here. Is something bothering you?" "I'm fine." "Because if you want to leave early." "I don't want to leave early. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine, and we both knew it. That night I saw the fence again, clear as day. It was right at the edge of our site now, close enough that I could see the diamond pattern of the chain link catching the firelight. And beyond it, in the darkness, I thought I saw movement. Derek saw nothing. When I pointed it out, he looked where I was indicating and saw only trees. His concern had shifted from patient to worried. He suggested we cut the trip short, maybe see a doctor when we got home. I told him to stop treating me like I was crazy. We went to bed angry, each of us lying rigid on our respective sides of the mattress. I woke up at 3 in the morning with absolute certainty that something was wrong. The RV was silent. Derek's breathing was steady and slow beside me. But something had pulled me from sleep, some sense of wrongness I couldn't identify. I lay there for several minutes, listening. Then I heard it, a soft metallic sound, like chain link rattling in the wind. I got up as quietly as I could and went to the front of the RV, looking out through the windshield. The campsite was illuminated by a nearly full moon, bright enough to see details. And there, encircling our entire clearing, was the fence. It formed a perfect perimeter, maybe 10 feet from the RV on all sides. The same chain link, the same height, the same lack of gates. As I watched, I realized the metallic sound was coming from something touching the fence. Testing it, I couldn't see what it was. The angle was wrong, the shadows too deep. But I could see the fence moving slightly, rhythmically, as something on the other side pressed against it. I should have woken Derek. I should have grabbed my phone and taken a picture. Instead, I stood frozen, watching the fence shake and settle, shake and settle. After what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, the movement stopped. I waited, barely breathing, but nothing else happened. Eventually, I went back to bed. I didn't sleep. In the morning, the fence was gone. I went outside as soon as it was light, walking the perimeter of our site. Nothing. No fence, no indication that one had ever been there. The ground was undisturbed. No post holes, no flattened grass, nothing. Derek found me standing in the middle of the clearing looking at the dirt. Nat? It was here, I said. All around us. I saw it. He came over and put his hands on my shoulders. I think we should pack up and head home. You haven't been sleeping well, and I know what I saw. I believe that you saw something, but maybe we should get you checked out, just to be safe. I shrugged off his hands. I'm not having a breakdown, Derek. Something is wrong with this place. We argued for the better part of an hour. He wanted to leave immediately. I insisted we stay, partly because I didn't want to admit defeat, partly because I needed to understand what was happening. Eventually, we reached a compromise. We'd stay one more night, and if anything else happened, we'd leave in the morning. I spent the day investigating. I walked the surrounding area, looking for any explanation. Other campers, though there weren't any within shouting distance. Survey markers, old foundations, anything that might explain the fence. I found nothing. The forest was just a forest. Trees and dirt and rocks and the occasional startled squirrel. By evening, I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe the stress of his mother's death and our marital problems had affected me more than I'd realized. Maybe I was having some kind of breakdown. We ate dinner in tense silence, then sat by the fire. Derek kept watching me out of the corner of his eye like I might suddenly start screaming or stripping naked or something. Around 10, we went inside. Derek fell asleep quickly, he always did, but I lay awake, staring at the curved ceiling of the RV. At 11:30, the fence came back. I heard it first. That metallic rattle, soft but distinct. I got up and looked out the windshield, and there it was, surrounding us again. But this time I could see more clearly because this time the fence was only about 5 feet from the RV. We were in a cage, a perfect circular cage with no entrance and no exit, and something was outside it, moving in the darkness between the trees. I could see shapes, not clear enough to identify, but definitely moving, circling, walking around the perimeter of the fence, testing it occasionally with what might have been hands or paws or something else entirely. I grabbed Derek's shoulder and shook him hard. Derek, wake up. He came awake confused, blinking in the darkness. What? What's wrong? Look, I pointed out the windshield, and for the first time he saw it too. I watched his face change as his eyes adjusted, as he processed what he was seeing. The fence, the movement beyond it. What the fuck? He whispered. We stood there together, watching. The shapes continued their circuit, never coming close enough to fully reveal themselves. After a few minutes, Derek reached for his phone. No signal, he said. I checked mine. Same, no bars at all, even though we'd had decent coverage since we arrived. We should get in the truck, Derek said. Just drive out of here. The fence. Fuck the fence. We'll drive through it. We got dressed quickly, grabbing our keys and phones. Derek started to open the RV door, then hesitated. What? I asked. The fence is... It's right there. Right outside the door. I looked. He was right. The fence was now close enough that we'd have to squeeze between the RV and the chain link to get to the truck. Derek opened the door slowly. The night air came in, cold and sharp. He stepped out carefully, and I followed. The fence was real, solid. When I touched it, the metal was cold and rough with rust, and it didn't give at all when I pushed. Derek was already moving toward the truck, which was parked just inside the perimeter. We climbed in, and Derek started the engine. The headlights came on, illuminating the fence in front of us and the trees beyond. And there, caught in the light, I finally saw one of the shapes clearly. It looked human, mostly. It was standing upright on two legs, and it had arms and a head. But the proportions were wrong. The limbs too long, the head too large. And its eyes reflected the headlights like an animal's, glowing white and empty. Derek saw it too. He put the truck in drive and hit the gas. We slammed into the fence at maybe 20 miles per hour. The truck stopped dead. The fence didn't break, didn't even bend. It was like hitting a concrete wall. The airbags deployed, and for a few seconds, all I could process was the sting of impact and the smell of the airbag powder. When I could see again, I looked out the windshield. The fence was intact, and the thing that had been standing there was gone. Back up, I said. Try again. Derek put the truck in reverse. The engine made a grinding sound, but we moved backward. He tried twice more to ram through the fence, hitting it from different angles. Nothing worked. The fence held, and on the third impact, I heard something crack in the truck's engine. It's not going to work, Derek said. His voice was shaking. We got out of the truck and stood there looking at the fence. All around us, just beyond the chain link, I could see movement. More of those shapes, surrounding us completely now, watching. The RV, I said, we need to get back inside. We ran. The distance felt longer than it should have been, and I was certain something would reach through the fence and grab us, but nothing did. We made it back inside and locked the door, though I wasn't sure what good a lock would do. Derek tried his phone again. Still no signal. We had no way to call for help, no way to contact anyone. We were trapped in a cage in the middle of the forest with things circling us in the dark. This isn't possible, Derek kept saying. This isn't fucking possible. But it was happening. We stayed up all night, taking turns watching the fence. The shapes continued their patrol, never stopping, never coming closer, just circling endlessly. When dawn came, the fence was still there. That changed everything. Whatever this was, it wasn't limited to nighttime. In the growing light, I could see the fence more clearly. There was something wrong with it, something I hadn't noticed before. The rust patterns, they didn't make sense. They formed shapes almost like symbols or letters, but in no language I recognized. We have to walk out, Derek said. Follow the fence until we find an opening. There won't be an opening. You don't know that. But I did know it, I could feel it. This fence didn't have an opening because it wasn't meant to. It was meant to contain us. Still, we tried. We left the RV and walked along the inside of the fence, following its perimeter. Derek held a tire iron from the truck, though what he planned to do with it I don't know. I carried a flashlight even though it was getting lighter by the minute. We walked for hours. The fence continued unbroken, the same height, the same diamond pattern, the same rust. The forest outside looked normal. Birds in the trees, squirrels running up trunks, sunlight filtering through the aspen leaves, but we couldn't reach it. Eventually, we came back to the RV, exhausted and thirsty. We'd completed a full circle. The fence had no openings. We'll die here, Derek said. He was sitting on the ground, his back against the RV tire. We'll run out of food and water, and we'll die here. Don't say that. It's true. No one knows where we are. The ranger station is a mile away, but we can't get there. We can't even call them. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. He was right. We spent that day rationing our supplies, trying to figure out how long we could last. We had maybe 2 weeks of food if we were careful, less water. The RV's tank could be refilled from the hookup, but at some point the power would go out. The generator would run out of fuel. That night the shapes came closer. They pressed against the fence, their faces, if you could call them faces, visible through the chain link. They didn't speak, but they made sounds. Soft clicking noises that might have been language, or might have been something else entirely. Derek tried to communicate with them. He stood at the fence and asked questions. Who are they? What did they want? Why were we here? They didn't answer. They just watched us with those reflective eyes and made their clicking sounds. On the third day, Derek tried to climb the fence. I told him it was a bad idea, but he was desperate. He made it about halfway up before the fence did something I still don't understand. It moved, not bending or breaking, but shifting somehow, and Derek fell. He landed hard on his back, and for a terrifying moment I thought he'd broken something. But he was okay, just bruised and more hopeless than before. That night we heard the sounds. They came from beneath us, from under the RV, a scratching, digging sound like something trying to burrow up through the earth. We stood on the couch as if that would help, and listened to the digging get louder and closer. I thought something would break through the floor, would reach up and grab our ankles. But it never did. The sound just continued, steady and patient. In the morning, the fence was closer. Now only about 3 feet separated us from it on all sides. We couldn't even step outside without touching it. We're going to suffocate, Derek said. It's going to keep getting smaller until we can't breathe. We'll figure something out. But I didn't believe it. On the 4th day, the fence reached the RV. We woke up to find chain link pressed against the windows, blocking our view of the forest. The RV was now inside the fence, or the fence had grown through it. I couldn't tell which. We couldn't open the door anymore. We were sealed inside. Derek started crying. I'd never seen him cry before, not even at his mother's funeral. He sat on the floor and sobbed, and I sat next to him and held him because there was nothing else to do. The scratching from below continued. The shapes outside, now visible through the fence pressed against our windows, continued watching. And the clicking sounds got louder, more insistent. I think they're talking to each other, coordinating, planning. We're on day 5 now. The scratching has gotten louder. The fence is starting to grow through the RV, thin lines of chain link emerging from the walls and ceiling, spreading like veins. Derek has stopped responding to me. He just sits on the couch, staring at nothing. I'm writing this on my phone, even though I can't send it to anyone. Maybe someone will find it eventually. Maybe they'll figure out what happened to us. The fence is shrinking again. I can feel the walls pressing in. The shapes are inside the RV now. I can see them in the corners, watching us with those empty eyes. Derek can't see them yet, but he will soon. I need to stop writing. The clicking is getting louder, and I think they're ready now. I think the fence has us exactly where they want us. The ranger at the station, when we checked in, she asked if we planned to stay the full 2 weeks. I think she knew. I think she knows about the fence and what it does. I think we were supposed to find it. The fence is touching me now. Cold metal against my skin. It's growing through the walls, through the floor, through everything. In a few minutes, there won't be any space left. Just fence. Derek is screaming. I can see them clearly now. All of them inside the RV with us, their long fingers reaching out. The fence is everywhere. I understand now. The fence doesn't keep things out. It keeps things in. And now, we're part of what it contains. The clicking has stopped. Everything is very quiet. The fence is all there is. We're inside it now. We'll always be inside it. Story 4. My name is Ethan Adams. I'm a field geologist, 34 years old, and I've spent the better part of the last decade working remote sites across the American Southwest. I'm writing this because I need to get it down while I still remember most of it. The problem is, the more time passes, the less certain I am about what actually happened in Fish Lake National Forest last September. I'd taken a week off between contracts. Rare for me, but my supervisor insisted. "You're burning out," she'd said, which was probably true. I'd been living out of motel rooms for 8 months straight, analyzing core samples from various mining operations. The work was good, the pay better, but I was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. I decided on Fish Lake because I'd heard about the Pando, the massive aspen grove that's technically a single organism connected by one root system. As a geologist, the idea fascinated me. Plus, it was off-season, fewer tourists. I could set up my RV somewhere quiet and just exist for a few days. The drive from Salt Lake took about 3 hours. I pulled into the Forest Service campground around 2 in the afternoon. The place was nearly empty, just my RV and 2 other sites occupied. One had a pop-up camper with Idaho plates, the other a small Class C with a couple who looked to be in their 60s. I picked a spot at the far end, backed in, and leveled out. The first day was exactly what I needed. I took a short hike, made dinner on my camp stove, read for a while. The aspen trees were beginning their fall color change, bright gold against the deep green of the surrounding conifers. I went to bed early, around 9, and slept hard. I woke up around 3:30 in the morning. Not sure why at first, just that sensation of being pulled out of deep sleep by something your conscious mind hasn't identified yet. I lay there in the dark of my RV listening. That's when I first heard it. It wasn't loud. In fact, if there'd been any other ambient noise, wind, animals, anything, I probably wouldn't have noticed it at all. But the forest was completely still. And underneath that stillness was a sound. A hum. Low frequency, almost subsonic. The kind of thing you feel in your chest as much as hear with your ears. I got up and looked out the window. The campground was dark except for a single security light near the entrance. I couldn't see the other campers from my spot. The hum continued, steady and unchanging. I'm not someone who gets spooked easily. When you've spent as much time alone in remote areas as I have, you get used to strange noises. Wind through rock formations can sound like voices. Animals make all kinds of unsettling sounds. This was different, though. It had a mechanical quality to it, but not quite. More organic than that. Like if you could hear the earth itself breathing. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just listening. Finally, I went back to bed. The hum continued, but eventually I drifted off. When I woke up the next morning around 7, it had stopped. I made coffee and sat outside, watching the light come through the aspens. Everything seemed normal. After breakfast, I decided to drive into town, maybe 20 miles away, to get some supplies. As I was pulling out, I passed the couple in the Class C. They were outside, the woman hanging laundry on a line between trees. I waved. She waved back but didn't smile. Her husband was sitting in a camp chair staring at the ground. Town was fine. I got what I needed and drove back. The pop-up camper was gone when I returned. Just me and the elderly couple now. That afternoon I went for a longer hike. I'm talking actual hiking, not just a walk. About 8 miles through dense forest and up to a ridge overlook. The whole time I had this strange feeling. Not that I was being watched exactly, more like the forest itself was paying attention to me. I know how that sounds. I'm a scientist. I don't believe in animistic nonsense, but I can't describe it any other way. When I got back to camp, the couple's RV was still there, but I didn't see them. Their camp chair was overturned and the laundry was still hanging on the line, but it looked like it had been there a while. Everything was stiff and dry. I made dinner, drank a beer, read some more, went to bed around 10. The hum woke me again at 3:06 a.m. exactly. I know because I checked my phone. Same low-frequency vibration, same total stillness in the forest around it. This time I got up right away and went outside. The air was cold, probably low 40s. My breath made clouds. The security light at the entrance had burned out or been turned off. I couldn't tell which. It was dark in a way that cities never are. The kind of dark where you can't see your own hand in front of your face unless you really focus. I stood there in my sweatpants and jacket listening to the hum. It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, not getting louder or quieter no matter which direction I turned. That's when I noticed the couple's RV. There were no lights on inside, but the door was hanging open. I should have gone back inside my own RV. That's what the rational part of my brain was telling me. Instead, I walked over there. "Hello?" I called out when I got close. "Everything okay?" No answer. The hum continued. I climbed the 2 steps up to their door and looked inside. Even in the darkness, I could tell the RV was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of stuff. No sleeping bags, no camping gear, no personal items. Like they'd packed up everything and left, except their RV was still here. I backed away and returned to my own site. The hum went on for another hour, then stopped as abruptly as it had started. I didn't sleep after that, just sat in my dinette area, drinking instant coffee and waiting for daylight. When the sun came up, I went back over to the couple's RV. In daylight, it looked even stranger. The door was closed now, though I was certain I'd left it open. I knocked, waited, then tried the handle. Locked. I walked around the vehicle. Everything looked normal. No damage, no signs of struggle. But that laundry was still hanging on the line. And now that I looked closer, I could see it wasn't regular camping clothes. The items were too old-fashioned. A woman's dress that looked like something from maybe the 1950s. A man's button-up shirt with a style I couldn't quite place. All of it bleached by sun and stiff as cardboard. I went to the camp host station near the entrance. There was a bulletin board with information about the area, fire regulations, that kind of thing. No one at the station itself. It was off-season, unstaffed except for occasional patrols. I got back in my truck and drove down to the ranger station about 15 miles away. The woman behind the desk looked bored until I started talking. "There's an RV at the Fish Lake campground," I said. "Been there at least 2 days. No sign of the owners. Door was open last night, but it's locked now. All their stuff is gone." She frowned and pulled out a log book. "Which site?" I told her. She ran her finger down the page. "We don't have anyone registered for that site," she said. "In fact, you're the only registered camper in that section right now." "That's not possible. I saw them, an older couple. They had Idaho plates." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not disbelief exactly. Something else. "Sir, there hasn't been another occupied site in that campground for 3 weeks. It's been slow this year." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. What was I going to say? That she was wrong? That I'd seen what I'd seen? "Look," she continued, her voice softer now. "It's been a strange season up there. We've had some reports. People hearing things. Seeing things that don't quite make sense. Most of them end up leaving early." She paused. "Maybe you should consider cutting your trip short." "What kind of reports?" She shook her head. "Nothing specific. Just people getting uncomfortable." I drove back to the campground. The RV was still there. I walked around it again in the afternoon light, taking photos this time on my phone. I tried the door again. Still locked. I peered in through the windows. Definitely empty inside. That night, I almost left. Had my keys in hand. Was ready to hitch up and drive straight back to Salt Lake. But something stopped me. Pride, maybe, or stubbornness. I'm not someone who runs from things I don't understand. That's literally my job, investigating the unknown, applying logic and methodology until it makes sense. I stayed. The hum came back at 3:06 a.m. Same as before. This time I recorded it on my phone. When I played it back the next morning, there was nothing but silence on the recording. 45 minutes of dead air. I tried to leave on the 4th day. I'm being honest about this part because it's important. I wanted to leave. I packed up everything, secured all the cabinets in my RV, did my external checks, started the engine, began driving toward the exit, but I couldn't find it. I know how insane that sounds. The campground isn't large, maybe 30 sites total, all arranged in 2 loops with a single entrance or exit. You literally can't get lost. But I drove around for what felt like an hour, and I kept ending up back at my original site. The landmarks were all wrong. Trees I didn't remember seeing before. Roads that curved the wrong way. Finally, I gave up and parked again. Sat there with the engine running, trying to make sense of it. My GPS had no signal. My phone said I was in the right location. But the satellite view showed just forest. No campground at all. That's when I looked up and saw it. There was someone standing at the edge of the tree line, just standing there about 50 feet away. I couldn't make out details because they were mostly in shadow, but the posture was wrong. Too still. No natural sway or shifting weight like a person would have. I got out of my RV. "Hey," I called. "Do you need help?" The figure didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there. I took a few steps closer. That's when I saw it wasn't casting a shadow. The morning sun was low and at an angle that should have thrown a clear shadow across the ground, but there was nothing. I stopped walking. We stayed like that for maybe a minute, me standing in the middle of the empty campground, this figure at the edge of the trees. Then it took a step backward and was gone. Not like it walked away, more like it had never been there at all. I got back in my RV and locked the doors. The afternoon of day 5, I tried hiking out. I know how that sounds, hiking out from a campground that I drove into. But I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I packed a day pack with water and snacks, started walking down what I thought was the access road. 3 hours later, I was back at my RV. I'd never made a turn. The road had just curved around. Impossibly. I'm a geologist. I understand topography. I know how to read terrain. This shouldn't have been possible. I sat at my dinette that evening, forcing myself to eat a can of soup even though I wasn't hungry. My phone was down to 15% battery. The solar charger on my RV roof didn't seem to be working. No matter how long I left it in the sun, the batteries weren't charging. That night, I didn't wait for the hum. I went outside at 3 a.m. exactly and just stood there. It started at 3:06 like clockwork. But this time, I noticed something I'd missed before. The hum had a rhythm to it. Not musical exactly. More like a pattern, a sequence that repeated every few minutes. I stood there listening, really listening, for the first time. And that's when I understood. It wasn't a sound from the earth or from machinery, it was language. Not words I could understand, but definitely some form of communication. A voice so low and slow that human ears could barely register it. And it was calling to something. I went back inside and closed all the windows. Covered them with sleeping bags and towels so I couldn't see out. Turned on every light in the RV. Put in earplugs, but I could still feel the hum vibrating through the floor. It went on for 6 hours that night. When it finally stopped, I was curled up in my bed, hands pressed over my ears even though it didn't help. Morning came. Day 6. I was out of food except for some crackers and a jar of peanut butter. My water was low. I knew I had to do something, but I couldn't think straight anymore. Every thought felt like it was being pulled apart before I could finish it. I forced myself to go outside. The other RV, the one that belonged to the couple who maybe never existed, was gone. Not driven away. Just gone. No tire tracks. No sign it had ever been there. Even the laundry line was missing. That's when I realized I was forgetting things. Basic things. It took me 5 minutes to remember my sister's name. Another 10 to recall what city I lived in. Not stayed in for work. Actually lived in. I had an apartment somewhere, I was pretty sure, but I couldn't picture it. I got a piece of paper and wrote down everything I could remember about myself. My name, my job, my age, the names of my parents. I folded it up and put it in my pocket. Day 7. I woke up at 2 p.m. I didn't remember going to sleep. I was on the ground outside my RV, lying on the bare dirt. My mouth tasted like copper. My clothes were dirty in a way that didn't make sense. Covered in something that looked like pollen but was black and had a chemical smell. I pulled the paper out of my pocket. My handwriting, but I didn't remember writing it. I read the facts about myself like they were about a stranger. Ethan Adams, geologist, 34. None of it felt real. The hum started at 3:06 p.m. that afternoon, during daylight. It had never happened during daylight before. I walked to where the couple's RV had been. There was a depression in the ground, almost perfectly circular, like something heavy had been sitting there for a very long time. The grass inside the circle was dead and gray. I stood in the center of that circle and the hum got louder. Not in my ears, in my bones, in my teeth. I could feel it in my spine, vibrating each vertebra individually. And I understood finally what it was doing. It was excavating, not digging into the ground, but digging into me, into my memories, my sense of self, everything that made me who I was, taking it somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't follow or understand. I ran back to my RV, grabbed my keys, started the engine. This time I didn't try to find the road, I just drove. Straight into the forest, bouncing over rocks and fallen logs, branches scraping the sides of my vehicle. I drove until I hit something hard enough to stop me, a boulder I didn't see in time. The impact wasn't bad. Crumpled the front bumper, maybe damaged the radiator. But I was out. I was in a part of the forest I didn't recognize, but I was out of the campground. I got out and started walking, left the RV where it was, took just my phone and wallet. Walked until I found a paved road, flagged down a passing truck. The driver was a local, said he'd give me a ride to town. "You look rough, buddy," he said. "What happened?" I told him I'd gotten lost, camping accident. He didn't press for details. He dropped me in town and I called a tow service, gave them approximate coordinates for where I'd left my RV. They found it 2 days later, exactly where I said. When they brought it to the lot, the odometer showed I'd driven less than a mile into the forest. The campground was about 300 feet behind where I'd crashed. I'd been in there 7 days. My phone logs confirmed it. I'd arrived on September 12th, left on the 19th. But when I got to town, when that truck driver picked me up, it was September 14th. I lost 5 days somewhere, or gained 2. I'm still not sure which. I had the RV repaired and sold it a week later. Took a significant loss, but I didn't care. I'm back to staying in motels now. Haven't been camping since. Here's the thing, though. Here's why I'm writing this down. I still hear it sometimes. The hum. Not at 3:06 in the morning or afternoon. Random times. I'll be at a job site or in a restaurant or sitting in traffic. And underneath everything else, the normal sounds of life, I'll hear it. That same low-frequency vibration. And for just a second, I'll forget where I am, what I'm doing, who I am. It never lasts more than a few seconds. I always come back, but each time it takes a little longer. And I can feel it. Something pulling at me, calling me back, excavating a little more each time. I looked up the campground later. Did some research. Fish Lake National Forest has been there forever, but that specific campground was built in 1952. Before that, it was just open forest, public land. But I found some old newspaper articles from the 1940s, reports of people going missing in that area. Not many, 2 or 3 cases total. What struck me was the details in the police reports which I got through a FOIA request. They all disappeared between September 12th and September 19th. Different years, but same date range. They all were camping alone, and every single one of them, before they vanished, reported hearing a strange humming sound that only occurred at night. I tried to find out what happened to them, if any were ever found. The records are incomplete. One case mentions a person being found 6 miles away with no memory of how they got there. They were returned to their family but were not themselves. That's the exact phrase in the report. Not themselves. Another case, the person was never found, but their vehicle was located at the campground, engine running, door open. Inside, investigators found what they described as personal effects arranged in a circular pattern. The report doesn't specify what items or how they were arranged. Last week I got a letter forwarded from my old address. No return address, postmarked from Utah. Inside was a photograph. It's a picture of the campground. I recognize my RV in the background, but in the foreground there's a figure, too distant to make out features, but definitely human-shaped, standing at the edge of the trees, exactly where I saw that shadowless figure. Written on the back of the photo in handwriting that's not quite right. The letters are formed correctly, but the spacing is off, like someone copied writing without understanding what it meant. Are 2 words. Come back. I keep the photograph in my desk drawer. I don't know why. Maybe because it's proof that something happened. Or maybe because, despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the lost days, there's a part of me that wants to. That's the worst part, not the fear or the memory loss or the thing that lives in Fish Lake National Forest. The worst part is knowing that it's still there, still humming at 3:06 a.m. and p.m., still excavating whoever's unlucky or curious enough to stay and listen. And knowing that somewhere deep in my brain, in places I can't quite access anymore, I want to hear it again. I want to know what it's taking from me. I want to understand where those 5 days went. What I did. What I saw. What changed. I check my watch a lot now. Whenever it gets close to 3:06, either a.m. or p.m., I stop what I'm doing and I listen. Really listen. And sometimes, if it's quiet enough, if there's no other sound to drown it out, I can hear it. Faint and far away, but definitely there. The hum, calling me back to finish what it started. My name is Ethan Adams. I'm a field geologist. I'm 34 years old. I have a sister named Jennifer and parents in Michigan. I live in an apartment in Salt Lake City, Unit 7B. I work for Morrison Environmental Services. I write these facts down every morning now, just to make sure I still remember. So far I do. But it's getting harder, and the hum is getting louder. I don't think I have much time left before I stop being Ethan Adams entirely. Before whatever's left of me drives back to Fish Lake, parks in that same spot, and walks into the forest to find out what's been calling me. Maybe that's why I'm writing this, not as a warning. I don't think warnings help with this kind of thing. If you're supposed to hear it, you will. If you're supposed to go, you'll go. I'm writing this because I need someone to know that I was here, that Ethan Adams existed, that whatever comes back from Fish Lake, if anything comes back, it won't be me. Not really. Just something wearing my shape, using my memories, pretending to be human while forgetting a little more each day. The date is October 29th. It's 2:47 p.m. In 19 minutes, I'll stop whatever I'm doing and listen. And one of these times, maybe tomorrow or next week or next month, I know what I'm going to hear. I'm going to hear it clearly, perfectly, every vibration and pattern and meaning. And when that happens, I won't be able to stop myself. I'll get in my truck and drive back to Fish Lake National Forest. I'll park in that same spot at the far end of the campground. I'll wait until 3:06 a.m. And then I'll walk into the trees following the sound that's been hollowing me out from the inside. If you're reading this after I'm gone, do me one favor. Don't go looking for me. Don't try to find out what happened. Don't go to Fish Lake in September. And if you hear a low humming sound anywhere at any time, especially at 3:06, do whatever you can to make it stop. Turn on music. Talk to someone. Leave wherever you are. Don't listen to it. Don't try to understand it. Don't let it start digging. Because once it does, it doesn't stop until there's nothing left to excavate. My name is Ethan Adams. At least I think it is. At least it was. Story 5. My name is Sarah Blackwell. What happened at Flaming Gorge in Wyoming last October still doesn't make sense to me, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I need someone else to hear it. Maybe then I can stop seeing it every time I close my eyes. I should start by saying I'm not someone who believes in supernatural bullshit. I'm a cardiac nurse. I deal in facts, in what I can measure and verify. When my patients tell me they saw their dead grandmother at the foot of their hospital bed, I nod and adjust their morphine drip. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or whatever else people blame when they can't explain something. But I can't explain what happened at Flaming Gorge. My husband David and I had been planning this trip for months. We just bought a used RV, a 2015 Winnebago that David spent every weekend fixing up in our driveway in Boulder. It was our empty nest project. Our daughter Emma had left for college in August and the house felt too quiet. David thought getting out of the city would help with what he called my adjustment period, though I told him I was fine. I was fine. We left on a Thursday morning in mid-October. David wanted to hit Flaming Gorge because he'd been there once as a kid and remembered how empty it was, even during peak season. In October, he figured we'd have the place almost to ourselves. He was right about that. The drive took about 6 hours. We got to the campground just as the sun was starting to drop behind the mountains. The ranger station was closed, but there was an envelope system for after-hours check-ins. David filled out the form and stuck our $40 in the slot. The campground map showed 12 sites, and from what we could see, only 2 others were occupied. We picked a spot near the back, away from the other campers. Site 11. It was right up against the tree line with a view of the reservoir through the pines. David backed the RV in while I stood outside directing him, just like we'd practiced in parking lots. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. That first evening, we grilled hamburgers on the propane stove and drank beer as the temperature dropped. David was in a good mood, talking about how we should do this more often, maybe head down to Big Bend in the spring. I nodded and smiled, but I was thinking about Emma's last text. Just a thumbs-up emoji in response to my question about whether she was eating enough vegetables. Kids, right? They go off to college and suddenly you're the annoying one for caring. We went to bed around 10. The RV was comfortable enough, though I couldn't get used to the narrow bed, or the way every small movement made the whole vehicle shift slightly. I woke up several times that night, not because of any noise, just because I wasn't sleeping well in general those days. The last time I checked my phone, it was 4:47 a.m. I must have dozed off again because the next thing I knew, David was shaking my shoulder. Sarah, wake up. I sat up, groggy and confused. The RV was still dark, but gray light was starting to leak through the windows. David was already dressed, standing at the foot of the bed. What time is it? A little after 6. Come look at this. I pulled on my jacket and followed him to the door. David opened it and gestured outside. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, just our campsite in the early morning light, the picnic table, the fire ring, the trees beyond. Then I saw the deer. It was standing about 20 feet from the RV between our site and the tree line. A doe, medium-sized, with brown fur and those big dark eyes. It was just standing there, completely still, facing our direction. Okay, I said, it's a deer. Just keep watching. I waited. The deer didn't move, didn't twitch an ear or swish its tail or lower its head to graze. It just stood there, staring at the RV. After about 30 seconds, I started to feel uncomfortable, though I couldn't have told you why. How long has it been there? I don't know. I got up to piss and saw it through the window. That was maybe 10 minutes ago. It hasn't moved. Maybe it's sick. Maybe. We stood there watching the deer watch us. The sun was coming up now, turning the sky from gray to pale blue. The deer's eyes caught the light. They looked wet and bright. Should we scare it off? I asked. David shrugged. I guess it'll leave when it's ready. We went back inside. David made coffee while I got dressed. When I looked out the window again, the deer was gone. See? David said. Nothing to worry about. The rest of that morning was normal. We had breakfast, then drove into the nearby town of Green River for supplies. I called Emma, got her voicemail, left a message. David bought firewood from a gas station. We had lunch at a diner where the waitress called everyone honey, and the coffee was terrible. When we got back to the campsite around 3 in the afternoon, the deer was there again. Same spot, same position, same absolute stillness. Jesus, David muttered. We got out of the truck slowly. The deer didn't react to our presence at all. I walked toward it, expecting it to bolt, but it just stood there watching me. I got within about 10 feet before David called out, Sarah, don't get too close. I'm just checking if it's hurt. I circled around slowly, keeping my distance. The deer's eyes tracked me, but the rest of its body remained motionless. I couldn't see any obvious injuries, no blood or broken legs. Its sides moved slightly with breathing, so it was definitely alive. This isn't normal, I said. No shit. David tried clapping his hands, then yelling. The deer didn't flinch. We threw some small rocks near it, not at it, just near it, and still nothing. It was like it was rooted to that spot. Maybe we should call someone, I suggested. Like who? Animal control? I don't know. The ranger? But the ranger station was closed, and when we drove back to check, there was just a sign saying to call a number in case of emergencies. This didn't feel like an emergency exactly, just weird. We decided to leave it alone and hope it would wander off on its own. That evening, we made dinner and tried to ignore the deer, It was still there, still staring. When darkness fell, David set up our camping chairs facing away from it, toward the reservoir. We could hear the water lapping against the shore, insects chirping in the trees. Normal night sounds. Except every time I glanced back toward the RV, I could see the deer's silhouette in the moonlight. Still in the same spot, still watching. This is really starting to creep me out, I admitted. It'll be gone by morning, David said, but he didn't sound convinced. We went to bed around 11. I kept the curtains closed on the windows facing the deer, which helped a little, but I couldn't stop thinking about it out there. Standing, watching, not moving. I didn't sleep well. Around 2 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back out, I noticed David was awake too, sitting up in bed with his phone. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "I heard something." "What kind of something?" "I don't know. Movement outside." I pulled back the curtain on the side window, the one facing away from the deer. At first I didn't see anything, just darkness and trees. Then my eyes adjusted and I saw it. Another deer. Same size, same position, same frozen stance. This one was on the opposite side of the RV. "David." He came over and looked. Fuck. We checked the other windows. There were deer on 3 sides of the RV now, all equally spaced, all facing us. The only side without a deer was the one facing the road. "Okay," David said. "Okay, this is not normal." "You think?" "Maybe they're just... I don't know. Deer do weird things sometimes." 3 deer just happened to surround our RV and stand completely still in the middle of the night. "I don't know, Sarah. I'm trying to think of a rational explanation." We both were. That's what we do. We're rational people. David's a high school physics teacher, for Christ's sake. We don't do paranormal or unexplained. There had to be a reason. We sat there in the dark, looking out at the deer. After a while, David got his hunting rifle from the storage compartment. He didn't load it, just had it ready. I didn't argue. Nothing happened for the rest of the night. The deer didn't move. We didn't sleep. When dawn finally started to break, we both rushed to the windows to see if they'd left. They hadn't. Now we could see them clearly in the morning light. 3 does, all identical in size and coloring, all standing like statues around our RV. "We should leave," I said. "And go where? Back to Boulder?" "I don't know. Anywhere but here." But David had that stubborn look he gets. "We paid for 3 nights. We're not letting some deer run us off." "David, they're just animals, Sarah. Deer. They'll get bored and leave." So we stayed. That 3rd day is when things got worse. We tried to maintain normalcy, made breakfast, read our books, played cards. But the deer were always there in our peripheral vision. Sometimes I'd forget about them for a few minutes. Then I'd glance up and see them through the window and my stomach would drop. Around noon, a truck pulled into the campground. We both jumped up, relieved to see another human being. The truck parked at the site nearest to the entrance and a man got out, probably in his 60s, gray beard, wearing a hunting vest. David went out to talk to him. I watched from the window. They spoke for a few minutes, David gesturing toward the deer. The man looked over at them, then back at David. He seemed to be shrugging. After a bit, David came back to the RV. What did he say? He said deer are acting strange all over this area. Something about the drought last summer affecting their behavior. He said they'll move on eventually. Did he seem concerned? Not really. But I noticed David kept checking the rifle after that. That afternoon, I tried calling Emma again, straight to voicemail. I told myself she was probably in class or studying or doing any of the 1,000 things college freshmen do. But I felt anxious anyway, like something was wrong. Maybe it was just the deer making me paranoid. By evening, we'd counted 5 deer total around our RV. They'd arranged themselves in a near-perfect circle, evenly spaced. The one that had been there first was still in its original spot. David, this isn't natural. I know. So what do we do? I don't know. We were both getting short with each other, the stress wearing us down. I suggested again that we leave, and again David refused. I think part of him didn't want to admit he was scared. Men are like that sometimes. We ate dinner in silence. The deer watched us through the windows. That night I woke up to David shaking my shoulder again. "Sarah, listen." I held my breath. At first I didn't hear anything, then I caught it. A sound coming from outside. Not from the deer, but from somewhere in the trees behind them. It sounded like breathing. Heavy, labored breathing, like something large, struggling for air. Then came another sound underneath it, almost like words being spoken, but too distorted to make out. "What the fuck is that?" I whispered. David had the rifle now, loaded this time. "Stay here. Don't go out there. I'm just going to look." He opened the door slowly. The breathing sound got louder. I crowded behind him, looking over his shoulder. The deer hadn't moved, but now I could see something else between them. Shapes moving in the darkness just beyond our circle of firelight. I couldn't make out what they were. Every time I tried to focus on one, it seemed to shift or blur. The breathing got louder, closer. David raised the rifle. "Wait," I said. "Just wait." We stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes. The shapes kept moving, circling. The breathing continued. Then gradually, it started to fade. The shapes melted back into the darkness. The only sound was the wind in the trees. David closed the door. His hands were shaking. "We're leaving first thing in the morning," he said. I nodded. No argument this time. We didn't sleep that night. We just sat there with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. The deer remained still as stones around us. When dawn came, we packed up quickly. David started the engine. I checked the mirrors, making sure we had clearance to pull out. The deer didn't move as we drove past them. They just turned their heads to follow our movement, their eyes tracking the RV until we were out of sight. We made it about 2 miles down the road before David suddenly stopped. "What are you doing?" He pointed ahead. Standing in the middle of the road was a deer. Same size, same coloring, same frozen stance. David honked the horn. The deer didn't move. He tried to drive around it, but as soon as we pulled onto the shoulder, the deer shifted position to block us again. Not quickly. It moved slowly, deliberately, like someone placing a chess piece. "David, just push past it. I'm not hitting a deer with the RV." We backed up and tried the other side. The deer moved again, blocking us. This went on for 10 minutes. Every time we tried to go around, the deer repositioned itself. It was like it knew exactly what we were trying to do. Finally, David shifted into park and grabbed the rifle. "I'll scare it off." He got out and fired a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed off the canyon walls. The deer didn't flinch. David walked toward it, yelling, waving his arms. The deer just stared at him. He got within 5 feet of it, close enough to touch it, and I saw something that made my blood go cold. The deer had a wound on its side. A bullet hole, fresh and bleeding. David had shot it. But that was impossible. David had fired into the air, nowhere near the animal. He saw it too. He stumbled backward, raising the rifle again. "Don't," I called out the window. "Don't shoot it again." He lowered the gun and backed toward the RV, not taking his eyes off the deer. When he climbed back in, his face was white. "Did you see?" "Yes." "I didn't hit it, I fired straight up." "I know." We sat there for a long time trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, David decided to try ramming it, just pushing it out of the way with the RV's bumper. But when he shifted into drive and started forward, the deer moved. Not away. Toward us. It walked slowly, still staring, its wound dripping blood onto the asphalt. David slammed on the brakes. The deer kept coming. I don't know why we didn't just run it over. I still can't explain that. We both just sat there, frozen, as this bleeding deer walked right up to the windshield and pressed its face against the glass. Up close, I could see things I hadn't noticed before. The eyes weren't quite right. Too large, too bright, the pupils the wrong shape. The mouth hung open slightly, and I could see something dark moving inside, like there were too many teeth or the teeth were in the wrong places. It stayed like that for maybe 30 seconds, its hot breath fogging the glass. Then it backed away, moved to the side of the road, and stood there. The road ahead was clear. David didn't need to be told twice. He floored it. We drove for 2 hours straight, didn't stop until we hit Rock Springs. Found a McDonald's parking lot and just sat there trying to process what had happened. I called Emma again. Still voicemail. "We should go to the police," I said. "And tell them what? That some deer were acting weird?" "David, that thing had a bullet wound that you didn't cause. Something is very wrong here." "I know that, but what are the cops going to do about it?" He had a point. We didn't have any proof beyond our own story, which sounded insane even to me. Eventually, we decided to just head home, get away from Wyoming entirely. The drive back to Boulder was tense. Every time we saw a deer by the side of the road, and there were several, I felt my heart start racing. But they were normal deer doing normal deer things, grazing, walking, running away when we got close. We made it home by evening. The house felt different somehow, though nothing had changed. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed us back. That night, I finally got a hold of Emma. She was fine, just busy with midterms and hadn't been checking her phone. I didn't tell her about Flaming Gorge. What would I say? 2 days later, David went out to move the RV from our driveway into storage. He came back inside after a few minutes, pale. "What's wrong?" "There's blood on the bumper." "What?" "Fresh blood, and..." He paused. "And there are hoof prints on the hood, like something climbed on top of it." We went out to look. He was right. The blood was thick and dark and the prints were clear. Deer tracks leading from the ground up onto the hood, across the roof, and back down the other side. We got the RV professionally cleaned the next day, paid extra for them to detail every inch of it. But I keep thinking about those tracks, about how they showed a deer walking up and over the vehicle, defying gravity. Last week, David shot the deer. I know that sounds like I'm jumping ahead in the story, but I'm not. This is the part I've been dreading telling you. It happened while he was mowing the lawn. I was inside making lunch when I heard the shot. I ran outside and found him standing in the backyard, rifle in his hands, staring at the fence line. "There was a deer," he said. "Right there, just standing there watching me." "Did you hit it?" "I think so. I saw it fall. But when we looked, there was nothing there. No blood, no body, no sign that any deer had been present at all. Just David's memory of it standing there, staring at him with those two bright eyes. That was 3 days ago. Since then, David's been acting strange. He keeps checking the windows, looking for something. He's not sleeping. Yesterday, I caught him in the garage at 2 a.m. just sitting there in the dark. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Listening." "For what?" "The breathing. Can't you hear it?" I couldn't hear anything except our neighbors' wind chimes and the normal sounds of night. But David insisted something was out there, circling the house, breathing. This morning I found deer tracks in our flower bed. They led from the street to our bedroom window, then back out to the street. Perfect prints in the soft soil. Emma called while I was staring at them. She said she'd been having nightmares about a deer standing outside her dorm room window. She laughed when she told me, said it was probably stress from midterms, but I could hear the fear underneath. "Have you seen it?" I asked. "When you're awake, I mean?" There was a long pause. "Yeah," she finally said. "Last night, it was just standing there in the parking lot staring at my window. I thought I was dreaming, but when I woke up this morning, there were tracks in the snow. I told her to come home. She said she would after her last exam on Friday. I'm sitting here now, looking out our bedroom window. It's 11:47 p.m. David's in bed, finally asleep after I gave him one of my Ambien. Emma's still in Fort Collins, 2 hours away. I keep checking my phone to make sure she hasn't texted me anything alarming. There's a deer in our front yard. I can see it through the window, standing under the streetlight. It's not doing anything, just standing there like all the others watching the house. Its sides move with breathing, slow, even breaths. I keep telling myself it's just a deer. They come down from the mountains sometimes, especially in fall. It's not the same deer from Flaming Gorge, that's impossible. But I can see there's something dark on its side. Even from here, even in this light, I can see what looks like a wound. I should wake David. I should call someone, but I can't move. I'm just sitting here watching it watch me. It's been 45 minutes now. The deer hasn't moved. I just checked on David. He's still asleep, but there's blood on his pillow. I touched his shoulder and my hand came away red. When I pulled his shirt aside, I saw it. A wound on his side, exactly where the deer was shot. I don't know what to do. I don't know what this means. The deer is still out there. Wait. There's something wrong with its mouth. It's opening slowly, wider than any mouth should open. I can see teeth. So many teeth. And something is coming out. Something that looks like words forming in the air, made of breath and darkness. I can't look away. David just sat up beside me. His eyes are open, but he's not awake, not really. He's staring at the window at the deer. It wants in, he whispers. The deer is walking toward the house now. Emma just texted me. Just one word. Mom. Then another text. It's in my room. I'm calling her, but she's not answering. I keep calling, and the deer is at the front door now. I can hear its hooves on the porch. David is getting out of bed. He's walking toward the bedroom door. The wound on his side is spreading, covering his ribs, his chest, and I need to stop him, but I can't move. I'm frozen just like the deer was frozen. And the house is so quiet except for the breathing. That heavy, labored breathing we heard in the woods. It's inside now, it's everywhere. And David is opening the bedroom door. Emma still isn't answering. The deer's breath is fogging up the window right in front of me, even though nothing's there. Nothing I can see anyway. But I can hear it. I can hear it breathing. And David is saying my name. Sarah, Sarah. But his voice is wrong. It's coming from two places at once, from him and from outside, from him and from the deer. And I understand now what that man in the hunting vest really told David. I understand what David didn't want to tell me. He said the deer weren't just acting strange. He said they were looking for something specific, someone specific. He said once they found you, they never stopped looking, never stopped following. And now they've found us. They've found Emma. And the breathing is so loud I can't think. I can't move, I can't do anything except sit here and watch David walk out of the room, watch the door close behind him, hear his footsteps going down the stairs, hear the front door open, and I know I should stop him, but I can't. I'm just sitting here watching the fog on the window form shapes, form words. We're waiting, written in condensation that shouldn't be there, and my phone is buzzing, Emma calling back finally, and I answer it, but all I hear is breathing. That same heavy breathing, and then her voice. Mom. But it's wrong, it's too slow. The words stretching out. Mom, I think I did something bad. I think I hurt someone. And I want to ask her what she means, but I already know. I've known since we saw that first deer at Flaming Gorge, since I noticed how it was staring specifically at our RV, and not at the other campers. How it followed us with its eyes like it recognized us, like it knew us. And I'm remembering now how we had to give our names on that form at the ranger station, how we listed Emma as our emergency contact with her name and her address in Fort Collins, and I gave them everything they needed. I led them right to her. And she's still talking on the phone, but her words are blending together. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I think she's dead. I think I killed her. And I want to tell her it's not her fault. She's not herself. Something's wrong, but my mouth won't work. Nothing works. And now I hear David outside talking to someone, his voice drifting up through the window. Yes, I see her. Yes, she's right here. And I look out and there are more deer now, 6 or 7 of them standing in our yard. And David is standing with them and they're all looking up at me. And I see now that they're all wounded, all bleeding from the same spot. And David has his hand pressed to his side where his wound is spreading. And he's smiling. They're all smiling with those wrong mouths that have too many teeth. And Emma is crying on the phone. Mom, please. I don't know what's happening to me. I keep blacking out, and when I wake up, there's blood. And I want to help her, but I can't help her because I can't even help myself. I can't move. I'm just sitting here watching the deer and David, and now there's someone else walking across our lawn, someone small. Someone the right size to be Emma. But Emma's in Fort Collins. Emma's 2 hours away. Except she's not. She's right there in our yard, wearing her pajamas, her hands covered in blood, and she looks up at me and waves. And her smile is wrong too. And I realize this happened before we went to Flaming Gorge. This started before we ever saw that first deer. This started with Emma leaving for college, and how strange. She acted that last day, how she hugged me too long and said, "I'm sorry," without explaining why. And I thought she just meant sorry for growing up, sorry for leaving, but that's not what she meant at all. And the deer are moving now, walking toward the house in a circle, surrounding it the same way they surrounded our RV. And I can hear them breathing in unison. And David and Emma are at the front door. I hear them come inside, hear them climbing the stairs, and I should run, but there's nowhere to run to. They're everywhere. They've always been everywhere. And someone's opening the bedroom door, and I can't look, I won't look. I'm staring at my phone instead, at the last text Emma sent before she called me, the one I didn't notice until now. The one that just says, "I'm sorry I brought it home with me." And now I understand everything. Now I know why the deer chose us, why they followed us, why they won't stop. It's because of Emma. Something she did or saw or became at that school. Something she brought back with her that summer before college started. Something she tried to tell us about in her own way. But we didn't listen. We never listen. And now it's too late because they're in the room. I can hear them breathing behind me. And when I finally turn around, I see 3 people who look like my husband and my daughter and myself. All of us standing there with wounds on our sides that won't stop bleeding. And they're all smiling at me with those wrong mouths. And the deer are at the window now, pressing their faces against the glass, and I realize that I'm not Sarah Blackwell anymore. I haven't been Sarah Blackwell since Flaming Gorge. Maybe longer. Maybe I became something else the moment Emma left for college, and I felt that first crack in my life opening up, that first moment of understanding that nothing would ever be the same. And all of this, the deer, the blood, the breathing, all of this is just the shape that loss takes when you look at it directly, when you refuse to pretend everything is fine. And now I'm standing up even though I don't remember deciding to stand, and I'm walking toward them, toward these things that look like my family, and they're reaching for me with red hands, and I'm reaching back. And the last thing I think before I stop thinking entirely is that maybe this is what we all become eventually. Maybe this is what's waiting for everyone. Not death exactly, but this terrible moment of recognition when you see yourself from the outside and realize you've been something else all along. Something that watches and waits and bleeds and never stops bleeding. And the deer are inside now, walking through walls that aren't really there. And I'm opening my mouth to scream, but what comes out is breathing. Just breathing. Heavy and labored and wrong, and I understand now that I'm not telling you this story. You're not reading this. Because there is no you and there is no me. There's only the breathing and the deer and the blood, and the wound that spreads from person to person like a secret nobody wants to know. And now you know it too. Just from reading this. Just from thinking about it. And tonight when you look out your window, you'll see them standing there in the dark. And you'll try to tell yourself it's just a deer, just an animal. Nothing to be afraid of. But you'll know the truth. You'll know they're waiting for you the way they waited for us. And when you finally go to them, and you will go to them, everyone does eventually, you'll understand that this was always going to happen, that the moment you started reading this, you were already one of them. Already bleeding from a wound you can't see. Already breathing in that slow, heavy rhythm that means you're not quite human anymore. And there's nothing you can do about it, nothing anyone can do, because the deer are patient and they never stop looking, and sooner or later they find everyone. And I'm so sorry I told you this. I'm so sorry, you know. But it's too late now. It's always too late. The deer are